Obviously you had some albums that came out and they did well. They got in the top 100, but it was really the fourth album, wasn't it? Leftover Show, which sent the band into, well, the stratosphere. It contained the anthem. It's the only way to say it. Carry On Wayward Son. I mean, my 10-year-old son loves it. He sings it. He absolutely adores that song as well. But it was a song that Kerry came up with right at the last minute, wasn't it? It was the album was pretty much already decided, and it was a very late edition.
It was the final day. We'd rent a space in Topeka, Kansas, and we were working on the album, working on material, and it was basically time to pack up the truck and head to Bogalusa, Louisiana, where we had recorded the previous album. And so we're going to just go through a few things. Kerry comes in and goes, "I've got another song," which was not all that welcome at that point. We'd been doing it for a few months and we were tired of working on new material. And he would have like a reel to reel or work off a cassette. So we didn't have like polished demos at all. So he just kind of laid out, here's the guitar riff. Oh, that's pretty cool. And here's the verses and here's the lyric sheet. Then we kind of mold over it and thought, wow, this has got a lot of promise. But then it was once we got to the studio, you go into this studio is just different. It's a assembly line where you spend a day or two or more getting drums tones, finding the right spot in the room, and the right microphones, and changing heads, and whack, 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 and it's not a lot of fun. And then, so now while you've got it set up, you're going to get all the drum tracks, and maybe to get the bass tracks with it. And so we're going through methodically through each song, and it's what we need to start working on that new song. And so we started that. We learned Wayward Son in the studio. Basically, it arranged it, and the version that is on record is, I would imagine, it's the first time we got it correct.
Wow.
So okay, take 10, take 12. I think we've got one. Is how that worked, and then we build on it from there. So it was, like you said, it was the last late addition to that project, which had that song not come along, I don't know if Don Kirshner would have sprung for another album.
Wow.
He was our benefactor, and he'd been pouring a lot of money into us for 3 albums, and now the 4th album. If that hadn't panned out, was he going to go into a 5th album, into a 6th album? Probably not. So that really, but when we got everything basically recorded, we had rough mixes, and we put everything in order how we thought it should be. We just sat back and listened to it, really for the first time, because we'd been too busy recording it to sit back and listen to it. And that was the first time we realized, wow, this is something different. This album is really good. This is solid. This could be a game changer. And then with Wayward Son, with the acapella intro that we had added to that, we felt very confident that this was our best record to date. We were at least delivering something that has a shot of being on the radio.
A shot of being on the radio, and it turned out to be an absolute rock anthem. You mentioned there that adding the a cappella at the start of the song. I mean, whose idea was that? Because it was a fantastic, wonderful harmony of the voices, wasn't it, before the drums and the guitars kicks in?
I'm not really sure who originally. It just seemed, okay, this is a great chorus. What if it was just kind of one of those things? Well, let's give it a try. And it worked out. We had examples of that from our previous days of playing in bar bands and stuff, and from our different roots. And I always loved an a cappella type of entrance myself. And one thing that comes to mind was "It's for You." It was a song by Three Dog Night that had the stacked da 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 harmonies, and I always loved that intro. And so we had examples of that in our roots and other bands we had previously played in. So why not? Let's give that a shot. And it was right away. Yeah, that's it.
Speaking of hits, Dust in the Wind, very different again to kind of the core Kansas sound. It was acoustic. I mean, what do you remember about hearing that for the first time?
Similar, it is now Point of No Return record. And we're in the same situation where we were in a rehearsal hall. By now, we had migrated to Atlanta, Georgia. And we're in a rehearsal hall there and working on material. And Carrie comes in one day and he just says, I've got another song. It's probably not anything we would do. It's all acoustic, which is just not what we do. But I just thought I'd bring it in. We'll just throw it on the pile of other stuff we're working on. Okay. And he had it on his reel-to-reel. He roughly recorded an acoustic guitar, and he had a lyric sheet. And I will never forget it, just standing there. And Carrie and Steve are over here. Steve's kind of looking over his shoulder and reading the lyrics, and Carrie's mumbling the melody. And this rudimentary acoustic recording is playing in the background. And he finishes, and Dave Hope says, where did that song come from? And Carrie was like, you guys like this? He had no idea. And it was like, Carrie, that's our next single. Period. Yeah, I mean, we, on that very first listen, in that rudimentary form, we heard a great song that he had penned and had no doubt that that was going to be our single and no doubt it was going to be a hit. And it was like, yeah, yes, this is the song that's going to continue the success of Love Belvedere.
Absolutely.
It was the only song that's ever come along that, upon first listen, I think, was an absolute yes by everybody.
That you just said that came from the album Point of No Return. I mean, the artwork for that album is very iconic as well. You see it everywhere. I mean, people in movies and TV shows, you see them wearing T-shirts with the album cover on it. I mean, what do you think when you see things like that all the time?
Oh, it's great. Somewhere on my computer, I have a clip from The Simpsons where Homer is in a record store, and I froze it and took a picture of it. But there's the album rack is behind him as he's talking to the store owner, and there's the albums there, and there's a Styx album, a Grand Illusion, and Point of No Return in the album bin there. And it's just very cool. That's 70s show. Donna was wearing the yellow Point of No Return shirt. It's and there's a lot of fans will point these things out. Have you seen this yet? Well, by now, yes. I've seen it 500 times, but it's very cool.
It is very cool. It is very cool.